1987, I'm 23. I'm absolutely convinced I'm going to be the next big thing in music production. I hand a cassette, yes, a cassette, to an A&R man at a major label. He's the sort of guy that wears a suit that costs more than my entire studio setup. He presses play, 15 seconds, that's all he gives it. Presses stop, gives it back to me, says, "It's the room, son," and walks off. I just stood there like a complete muppet. I had no idea what he meant. It took me another 5 years and about another dozen rejected demos before I finally figured it out. And today, I'm going to save you that 5 years. Because there's one thing that professional mixing engineers do every single session without fail that almost nobody in a home studio does. It's not a plugin, it's not expensive gear, and you've probably already got everything you need sat there right in your DAW. And once I show you, you'll never mix the same way again. Here's something I see all the time, and I've been guilty of this. Someone spends hours on a mix, it could be days, to get the EQ right, the compression right, the reverb sounding great, the side chaining on the kick drum sounds fantastic, everything's been done by the book. It sounds great on the headphones in the studio, so they bounce it down, bung it in the car stereo on the way to the shops, and when they play it, it sounds like it's been recorded in a tin can. Or they play it to a friend, someone who is not a music producer, someone that just likes listening to music. And he says, "Oh, yeah, that sounds good," in a way that it means it absolutely does not sound good. And I hear you. You've watched the tutorials, you've bought the plugins, you've read the forums at 11:30 at night when you should be in bed. But something's missing. It's almost right, but not quite right, and you just can't put your finger on why. I know that feeling. I've lived that feeling for years. And the reason, the actual reason, is something that nobody ever told me when I was starting out. Nobody put it in a book. No A&R man in an expensive suit ever sat me down and explained it to me properly. They just said, "It's the room," and walked off. Cheers for that. Let me take you back. Early 90s, I'm in a big recording studio in Copenhagen, proper commercial studio, beautiful big mixing desk, all the stuff. And there've been a few famous bands through there. And I'm watching the senior engineer. This guy had been doing it since the early 70s, a proper wizard. Then I noticed something odd. Every 20 minutes or so, he stops what he's doing, pulls up a track on the CD player, nothing to do with the project, a completely different track, plays it for about 15 seconds, then goes back to the mix. And this continues throughout the night. Eventually, I pluck up the courage and ask him, "What are you doing? Why do you keep switching away?" And he looks at me like I've just asked him why he breathes. And he says, "I'm checking where I'm trying to get to," in a Scandinavian accent. I can't really do a Scandinavian accent. And I still didn't get it. I nodded like I did. Classic. It wasn't until I started mixing on my own, out of that studio, in my own space, that it clicked. Because when you're in a professional studio, everything sounds professional. The room's treated, the speakers are calibrated, there's reference points everywhere. You're literally surrounded by great sound. When you're in a spare bedroom with a pair of speakers wedged between a bookshelf and the cat's scratching post, you've got nothing to compare to. And here's the thing about human hearing, and I've got to read this because I've tried it a few times and I can't actually say it without reading it. It's incredibly good at relative judgments and absolutely terrible at absolute ones. Which basically means we don't hear things in isolation, we hear things in context. And what that also means is, without a reference point, your ears will tell you that your mix sounds fine, even when it doesn't, especially when it doesn't. But that's not a flaw in your mixing technique, that's just how ears work. And once I understood that, and started doing what the engineer had been doing all along, everything changed. Right, enough of the war stories, I hear you say. Show me the thing. Fair enough, let's get into it. The technique is called reference mixing, and if you're not doing it, start today. Today, not the next project, this one. Here's what it is, and here's why most home producers skip it, and here's exactly how you can do it right now in your DAW. 3 things, let's go. First, what it actually is. Reference mixing is simply this, that throughout your mix, not at the end, throughout, you compare your work to a professionally mixed and mastered commercial track. Not to copy it and not to clone it, it's just to kind of use it as a compass to guide you where you want to go with it. Think of it like this. If you were driving somewhere you've never been, you'd use a sat nav. You wouldn't just point your car in a vague direction and hope for the best. You'd know where you were going to, and you'd keep checking in on the way. Reference mixing is your sat nav. You're saying, I want my mix to exist in the same world as this track. Same energy, same space, same weight, and every 20 minutes you're just going to check in to make sure you're still heading in that right direction. Second, why home producers skip it? Because nobody tells them to do it. It's as simple as that. Every tutorial focuses on the tools, the EQ, the reverb, the compression, the saturation, the what. Almost none of them focus on the target. Where are you trying to get to? And there's a psychological thing going on here as well. When we use reference tracks, we somehow think of it as cheating, whereas we should be able to do it all from memory, from instinct, from pure skill. But even the best engineers in the world, people that have been doing this for decades, use reference tracks on every session without exception. It's not cheating, it's just professional practice. Third, how to do it right now in your DAW. It's dead simple. I'll show you in Logic Pro, but it works in absolutely any DAW. Ableton, Pro Tools, Reaper, it doesn't matter. So here we are in the DAW. First of all, you've got to create a new track and use that as your reference track. So this is the reference track I'm going to be playing now. The original track that we were trying to compare it to was a Justin Timberlake song, but obviously with YouTube regulations we couldn't use it, so I got a track that was very similar to what that was. Now this is the reference track we use. I'll let you have a listen to it. If you can see on here the EQ, this is a thing called Voxengo, and it shows you the reference of where it's all going. Now I'm going to play you my rough mix. You probably notice I'm going to bring the Voxengo span in as well. You see the EQ of my rough mix here. You'll notice that although the levels are very similar, the bass is a bit woolly around there, and there's not as much clarity on the top. And that's the rough mix that we did. So if I go back to the reference, you can hear it again. The hi-hats are cutting through a little bit more. It's not exactly the same style, but it's very, very close. Now this is the mix that I actually remixed it to, and I'll bring in the Voxengo span version of that, and you'll notice here the bass is cleaned up more there. I've not got as much sub in there, but you're not going to notice that. The top is cleaner, there's a lot more clarity going on in the top, and if I shut up you can hear that the stereo mix is far better. Guitars are wider, it's a cleaner sound. This is the original rough mix. And I'll bring the span version of that in so you can see that. This was coming up there, and you'll see like the less top in there, a bit more woolly there. I'll play the clear one again. Hopefully you can hear the difference there. And the reference track. Now my track. Hope that helps. I want to make one thing clear. Your goal isn't to make your track sound identical to the reference track. That's not the goal. The goal is to try and get it into the same ballpark, the same sound, the same world that actual reference track's living in, the same sort of feel, the same kind of EQ, the same quality. Do that, and I promise you, the days of your mixes sounding great in your headphones and rubbish in your car, those days are numbered. Quick one, if this is useful, hit subscribe. I've got 40 years of this stuff and I'm just getting warmed up. Right, back to it. Let me show you what it actually sounds like in practice. Here's a rough mix I did earlier. No reference tracks, just mixed by ear. Now here's the reference track I used alongside it. Hear the difference? The reference has more air up top. The bass is tighter. It just sits differently. Now here's the same mix after I went back and used the reference throughout the process. Same plugins, same processing chain, no new gear, just a compass. And that's it. That's the whole secret. The engineer in that studio wasn't doing anything magical. He just knew exactly where he was trying to get to. Now you do too. 40 years in the business, and if I could go back and hand one piece of paper to my 23-year-old self standing in that corridor holding that rejected cassette, it would say, use a reference track. Not a plugin, not an expensive course, just a track you love running alongside your work, keeping you honest. Give it a go in your next mix, and if it changes things for you, let me know in the comments because I genuinely want to know about it. I'm Nick, 40 years down, plenty more to go. See you on the next one.